Everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to take a look at the Transformers 2 series Rise of the Beast 104 Deluxe Class Terracon Nightbird. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. Is it a pickup or a pass? Now let's take a look at the figure's packaging. So here we have the packaging. Starting at the very front, we have Transformers on the side. We have Stu series in black text with Nightbird in white text with a white Terracon symbol. We have 104 in blue text because this is the 104th figure of the Stu series line. We have a really cool image or artwork shot of Nightbird in her remote with her two katana blades. We also do have a really cool open window displaying the figure in the packaging. We have the Transformers Rise of the Beast logo at that top corner there, and of course we have another one at the top of the box as well. And if we do look at the side of the box, we have 104 again and Stu series going down the side of the box. We also do have Deluxe Class in several different languages with a really cool close-up shot of Nightbird with her head and chest and sword. And if we do look at the back of the box, the figure transforms in 21 steps. There's a product shot of her in her robot, her alt mode, and of course displayed with her included backdrop. We also do have a brief bio saying Nightbird and the Terracons fight back the Autobots to steal the transwarp key. And of course the final side, just that same artwork shot or image that we've seen before from the front of the box, of course, just put on the side there, looking pretty cool with an Autobot symbol. And that is pretty much it for the packaging. So let's now take a look at the included backdrop. So here we have a Nightbird in her licensed Nissan sports car alt mode. Let's take a look at the details. So starting at the very front, we have some of this kind of gold chrome mixture for the entire front grille section with some silver as well. And it's like the dark gray for this entire section here as well with some really nice clear plastic for these front headlights and a really tiny Terracon symbol done in this really nice kind of pinkish purple mixture, which is a really nice attention to detail. I mean, that's a really small space, and whoever painted and did that, I have to give props and kudos where it is due. That being said, I actually really would have liked the Terracon symbol to be on the hood a bit more noticeable, because from certain angles and views, like right now, you probably can't even see the symbol. And when you can from far away in this alt mode, it actually kind of looks like a paint mishap or kind of a paint blob. It doesn't even look like a symbol. So I think it's so small, it actually kind of harmed the figure in the process. So if Hasbro wanted to be a bit inaccurate, I do know Stu series is supposed to be, 100% movie accurate, like at all times, or as accurate as they can be to the movies that they were present in. I think it would have been fun if they put a symbol on the hood. Again, I do know that's inaccurate, but it really wouldn't bother me because it would actually be more noticeable, and it actually would have added some details to the hood because the hood is kind of bare in my opinion, but that might bother some people. Personally, me, I actually really would have liked that detail. And of course, looking at the actual hood, I do like the dark gray and the small little details like the mirrors and the smoky gray plastic for the entire window or windscreen section. If you actually do look at the side, I do love the metallic purple for the center portion of the wheel, and of course some black for the tower itself. And if you're wondering about the wheels, of course, which ones are pinned, which ones are mushroom peg, or all of them pinned, all of them mushroom peg, it's actually kind of a mixture of both, which is kind of a nice treat, because typically most of the time with deluxes, if you're just, most collectors probably do know by now, most deluxes do have mushroom peg wheels, which, some people, it's not really bothering them. Some people it really bothers them. I'm actually kind of in the middle. Like, if you cannot actually see the exposed mushroom peg like this, I'm perfectly fine. But if you can actually see the mushroom peg, I don't like that. So, of course, really doesn't bother me. Yes, I would have preferred pen wheels for all of them, but it is a deluxe, so no real surprise there. But I do like the really nice kind of chrome gold stripe. It actually goes all the way around the car, which is pretty cool, except the back. And if we do look at that back, we have this really nice kind of cool racing fin with some really nice taillights done in red. And of course, you actually have this really cool kind of layered panel effect for this entire back window there. And of course, we do have the top done in kind of a different shade of gray, almost kind of a bluish gray mixture. And if we do flip to the other side, all those same details repeated. And since there are some pen wheels and of course some mushroom peg wheels, I think it overall rolls pretty well across pretty much any surface. And as for accessory storage, I actually already do have it on the car, which I probably will take off because unfortunately I actually have owned 2 copies of this figure. One broke. If you actually have been paying attention to my community post on my channel, I did say the figure broke, the sword broke, which that was somewhat my fault, but I'm not really going to get into that right now. But really the accessory storage is good, but unfortunately on both copies I've owned of this figure, the sword never really has wanted to stay unfortunately. For now, it has stayed, but I probably will remove it in just a sec because I don't want it popping off and getting in the way when I do the comparisons of the alt mode. But it is good storage. I just think the tab could just be a bit more secure. I think maybe the tab is too small for the actual slot that it goes into. And speaking of that, there is actually two different areas. You can actually store the sword on the left or the right underneath the car, which is a pretty cool option. But actually kind of going further into that, this is a bit inaccurate. I really think Nightbird should have come with two swords because you actually have not seen the Rise of the Beast film yet. She did have two swords most of the time. I think there were a few scenes where she just used one, but I'm pretty sure in the, main final battle, this most popular, most liked scene of the film, she did use two. Also, the design of the sword is inaccurate in the movie or the film. I think they were actually kind of a checkered pattern. They were actually kind of a caution tape design. It was a black and yellow design, not just black. That being said, of course, it really doesn't bother me that much because I do like this design, but if I'm going for 100% accuracy, this is inaccurate. And honestly, if they wanted to include two swords, they actually have the space for it because, as I mentioned, there's one right here. So if they included two, one could go here and one could go there. So definitely kind of a missed opportunity. And also the sword isn't that, intricate or probably that expensive to be made. So I really think they could have included another sword. But I'm going to remove this before it pops off, randomly when I'm actually doing the comparisons. But that is the accessory storage. So now for some comparisons, here she is alongside her nemesis, Bumblebee. I always actually kind of took it as they were kind of nemesises or kind of head and head, like Optimus and Megatron. It just really seemed like there was a lot of beef and hate between these two in the movie, but they look pretty cool side by side. And moving up a size class, here she is with another Terracon member, that being Battletrap. Unfortunately, I don't have Scourge just yet, but they do look really cool side by side. I'm going to try and get Scourge as soon as I can to complete the whole Terracon team. And for one final comparison, here she is with Rhinox, and his review is coming very soon on the channel. Make sure you stay tuned for that. And that is it for comparisons and this alt mode. Let's now get down to transformation. So now for transformation, what you want to do is go to the very back of the sports car. You're actually going to untab the entire race car fin, just like that. And how this is tabbed in place is there is two tabs, one on each side, and of course two slots, one on each side. And you're just going to fold this entire section pretty much to the top of the car. You can actually get the wings, just hinge these out to the side, or of course whatever configuration or position you actually prefer to have them in. And then you can actually just fold this entire section down, and we'll go back to the entire backpack a little bit later in the transformation. Then you can actually go to the front. You're going to get this entire main square section that has the Terracon symbol. You're actually going to fold that panel up, and then you can actually pretty much disconnect the entire roof of the car and just shift this entire section back using that hinge. And then you're actually going to disconnect the entire panel here. It's actually a very secure panel. Just untab that, and then you can actually fold it back using that hinge. That will just fold back into place like that. Do the exact same process on their side. So just fold this entire section back, collapse it like that. And then what you can do is actually pretty much separate the entire side of the car from the leg. It'll just untab like that. As you can see, there's a tab there and there's a slot on the inside of that leg. And then you can just shift this entire section down, fully extend the leg, and then you can rotate this piece down, hinge this entire section like that. And then you can actually rotate at the top of the leg all the way around like that. And of course, I'm going to repeat the exact same steps and process on this side in case you missed that the first time around. So of course, you're just going to disconnect the entire foot from the side of the car. Just kind of get your nail in there and just separate it like that. And then you can fully extend this entire section. You can then fold the foot down like that, and then you can grab this entire kind of skirt piece, just rotate this down and into place. Then you can rotate at the top of the leg like that, and then we can actually flip to the front. You can kind of straighten out the legs however you like to pose them, and then you can actually bring the toe or kind of the foot out like that, bring that out like that. There we go, and there we have the legs all done. Then you can actually get the arms, just rotate these or kind of hinge these out at the shoulder. Same thing on the other side. And then you can actually get these two little front car pieces. They're actually in a little hinge right there. You can just shift this entire section in like that and like that. And then there's this open cavity where you can actually push the entire front of the car down to actually form the chest and tab that into place. Then you can actually situate the shoulders again because those kind of moved out of place. And then we can go to the back. You can actually get this entire section. You're going to rotate this entire assembly all the way around. So this entire front section here, this kind of hood section, is actually facing down. You're going to fold in this panel like that. And then there is 2 slots and 2 tabs, and that's supposed to tab into place, but on my copy, unfortunately, it never really wants to say, so I do apologize if that periodically kind of untabs during this review. But then you're actually going to use this tab here and this slot, and there's a hinge, and you're just going to hinge this entire section in and kind of tab the wings or the thrusters into place like that. And let me just quickly straighten up the figure and place her down like that. She's kind of hard to stand, but that is it for transformation. Let's now take a look at the details. Here we have a Nightbird in her robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with the head sculpt. We have some really nice transparent purple for the entire forehead section, with some really nice silver for the face, some dark red for the eyes, and some really nice dark gray for the entire back half of the head and the side pieces on the side of the head as well. I do like all the chrome at the chest, and it's actually really cool how the chest is actually made up of the entire front hood and front portion of the car on the alt mode. I think that's pretty cool. We do have some really cool shoulder pads, and there's actually some wheels that actually form the back portion of the shoulder, with some really nice metallic purple at the shoulder itself. And as for the form and the hand, I do have to say it is quite bland, because if you have not seen the Rise of the Beast film yet, well, in the film she actually had these really cool kind of form daggers. They would actually sort of come out of her arm. It actually looked really cool. I'm not sure if this entire section here is actually supposed to replicate that, because there is actually this entire section that kind of goes over the hand. If it is, I guess it's a very poor attempt, because I'm not really sure if that's what it's supposed to be. Also, it's quite bland. There's literally no paint apps. It's just gray plastic, so really not sure if that was the attempt or if they just completely kind of scrapped that. But overall, it's a quite bland form and appearance and of course design, but I definitely think they should have added that form guard maybe as an accessory or as actually a permanent piece, a part of the figure. And of course, if we do look at the legs and kind of the hip skirt pieces, overall not too bad. Yes, she does have a few panels on the sides of the leg, but they actually do play a part in accessory storage, so that's actually good. There is a use for it. And of course, if we do look at the entire waist, we actually have some really cool kind of spikes in this entire skirt piece here, with some really nice kind of chrome gold paint apps at the feet there, kind of the ankles. And if we do look at that back and that side profile, of course, definitely you're going to expect what I'm about to mention. I'm pretty sure every reviewer who has reviewed this figure so far has pretty much said the same complaints and thing about that backpack, but I do have to mention those really nice metallic purplish pink wheels pretty much at the back of the foot. I think that looks so cool, and you might think that wheel would maybe prevent the figure from standing. I don't think that's what prevents the figure from standing. I just think the size of the foot could be just a tad bigger, because there's a few times when I was posing this figure for, fun and taking the pictures for the image intro, she actually fell over a lot. I don't think the wheels had anything to do with it. I just think the foot should probably just be a tad bit bigger. I know they didn't want the foot to be too big, because of course Nightbird is supposed to be, quite sleek, quite slender, very stealthy. It does make sense, but it does kind of maybe make the figure just a tad bit less enjoyable when you're trying to pose the figure around. But getting it to that backpack, definitely probably the main talking point of this figure, because there's quite a bit to mention and quite a few complaints people have had. The number one thing is the wings. I really don't know what Hasbro was thinking or doing with this. I do know it is hard to include, massive thrusters on the back, because of course she has to transform into a small, sleek little car, and this figure is a deluxe, not a Voyager leader. I do think if this figure was, maybe Battle Trap size or scale or even Scourge, it probably would have been easier, because of course the budget and the paint apps that go into the figure is significantly more, and also of course there's more space to store all those pieces and components in the robot mode and in the alt mode. This is a deluxe, so of course the budget is less, also the figure is smaller. But honestly, I actually had an idea it would require parts forming, which of course I would say maybe half or more of the Transformers community really does not like parts forming. It never really has bothered me, but I think if I were to make this figure, if I worked at Hasbro, what I would have done is I would have have the thrusters be removable pieces, and they shouldn't even be a part of the alt mode, so they can just attach onto the back of this section right here, just forget about these small little wings, just have thrusters that can attach on there, and when you transform it, you just remove them and you put them off to the side. I know, of course, a lot of people don't like parts forming, but that's really all I've been able to come up with, to actually have those proper thrusters. And the wings, they don't, I wouldn't say they look bad, I just think the proportions are way off because they're so tiny in comparison to Nightbird. Also, they're inaccurate because they look like they're, wings from like a dragon or like a bat or something like that, which she never had wings. She had like thrusters, like huge rockets, on her back. And I mean, literally Bumblebee rips one off and stabs her with it and explodes. So it definitely has, like rocket fuel or like engine fuel in it. It's not like a wing. So that is inaccurate. And again, proportion wise, just way off. And the backpack is quite big, but honestly, that's probably the thing that doesn't bother me the most. I think probably with the backpack, of course, just leaving the wings and the thrusters off to the side. I think overall the backpack, the worst thing about it is it just does not tab into place. You might be have already been able to tell I'm trying not to touch the figure that much. Typically, I have it in my hand, constantly when I'm talking about the figure and showing off the details. Whenever I pick it up, I have a tendency, to want to put, my hand on the back. Most people hold their figures that way, because they don't want to drop it. Well, whenever I do, the backpack untabs. So I'm going to try and be pretty careful with that. So unfortunately, the connections just aren't that secure. I'm going to try and show you without it untabbing, but there's just two small little tabs and slots at the top there, which is definitely not enough. Also, a really weird thing is the tabs are actually clear plastic, which I really don't know why Hasbro would decide to do that, because, clear plastic is breakable. It is a lot more flexible and just a lot more weaker of a plastic than a typical one, so I really don't know why. I'm not sure if the clear plastic is the cause of how loose it is. Maybe just the tabs are too small for those slots that they go in, but overall just the connection is not good enough. As I mentioned before earlier in this review, I had, two copies of this figure and both were the same way. I really would like to say, oh, it's just my copy, but I've had two and they've been the exact same way, or maybe one's worse than the other. So I think it's probably going to be pretty much everyone's copy is that way. But let's now get into articulation. I'm going to try and not, have the backpack, completely untab and fall apart. I'm going to go a bit slow and be kind of careful. But the head, of course, can look up and down, and it can look side to side, but do keep in mind she kind of has those little sort of hair pieces. I think they're probably supposed to resemble sort of a hair piece. Those pieces are on the side, so of course the movement from side to side is probably less than a typical deluxe or figure, and it can also tilt side to side, and of course the arms can move out and in on a ball joint, and of course also forward and back, and the little shoulder panel actually does have some movement up and down. It's just that typical kind of friction tab connection, and there is also an elbow bend and a bicep rotation, and nothing out of the hand, which I definitely think they could have included. Considering this figure only has, one accessory, I'm just really wondering where is all that budget going, because the accessory isn't that, complex. I'll show it off in just a sec. I showed it a little bit earlier in the review. I really think, things like these, like a wrist rotation, definitely should be included, considering she only has one very simple accessory, and of course they just completely scrapped the thrusters in a very bad backpack. So I'm just kind of wondering, where's all that budget going, And as for the waist, if you do move the arms out, of course, it can kind of slightly rock back and forth. And what I would advise, if you're going to review or maybe show off this figure in a video and you don't want this to untab, don't hold it by the backpack. Just hold it by these side panels. And then, of course, hold the chest very lightly. And, of course, it can rotate just side to side. It does have a full 360 rotation. It's just, of course, there's this entire backpack in the way. So if you do want to utilize that joint, that swivel, you will have to untab this entire section right there. So there will have to be, kind of a, there will be, some kind of compromise if you want to use that. But of course, the legs can also kick forward, kick back, and you can actually kind of move the leg around the backpack and out to the side. And of course, there is a rotation at the top of the leg. There is also a knee bend to a pretty good degree. And there is also an ankle pivot to a very good degree. That's mostly due to transformation. So if you're wondering why is the foot, pivot so far, than a typical deluxe, that is the reason why. So very good articulation, no complaints at all, really just, other than the, The wrist, I definitely think that could have been included, especially because, there's other problems. If this figure only had, the wrist rotation, if that was the only complaint I had, to be like, okay, that's fine. But, there's the backpack, there's only one accessory, there's no thrusters. So I'm really just wondering what was the main part Hasbro, put their money towards for this figure. But as for accessories, as I've been kind of talking about that quite a bit, it's this really cool sword, which I did already mention, it's inaccurate. It really should have come with two, but I do like the sword, on its own. But of course, you do have to keep in mind this is Stu Series, and kind of their, main sort of marketing thing is they're supposed to be very accurate to the film that they're represented in. So I'm not a big fan of how this is inaccurate, especially because it's a sword. All they really needed to do was kind of paint it. I'm pretty sure in the film it's kind of a black and yellow stripe, kind of a caution tape detailing. So all they really need to do was just have a few yellow marks and done. Easy. And of course, include two. So I definitely think most likely if you like to custom paint, this black sword really is kind of a blank canvas for you. You really just need to paint a few yellow stripes and then you're done. And maybe you could 3D print a second one, because she did have a second one. But as for accessory storage, you can store the sword in her hand or actually on the side of the leg, kind of like a sheath, which I'm so happy this is a part of it, because there's so many figures that will include swords and they'll never have this option. And it can be on either leg in case you're warning. And of course the backpack did untab. I just popped it back into place, but you can do it on either leg. Does not matter. It's the same connection on the other side. But of course, the main way to store a sword is, let me see it, there we go, is in the hand like that. And there we go. And there we have Nightbird with her accessory. And I have to say, I think that looks really cool. And just kind of going back to the point I made before many times now is, if they didn't want to include a second sword, I think they could have maybe included one of those bombs. I'm pretty sure she had one of those little kind of detonator bombs that she used at the museum. I think that would have been a nice touch. Of course, any day I would have preferred the sword, but if at very least to have two accessories, I would have taken, a small little bomb, and then, they could have recreated that really cool museum fight scene, just another prop to use for your display. So I definitely think there was quite a few options to add another accessory, and I'm just really kind of wondering why they didn't take that opportunity. But that is pretty much it for accessories. Starting off our comparisons here, we have the Rise of the Beast Deluxe class Nightbird compared alongside the Rise of the Beast Voyager class of Battletrap. And now that I have Nightbird in my collection, I only have one more member of the Terracon team to go, that being Scourge. And let me know in the comments of all three Terracon members, which one is your favorite. And now for another comparison here, we have the Rise of the Beast Deluxe class Nightbird compared alongside the Rise of the Beast Deluxe class Bumblebee. And of all the deluxes so far part of the Stu Series Rise of the Beast line, which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. And now for one final comparison here, we have the Rise of the Beast Deluxe class Nightbird compared alongside the Terracon Foot Soldiers Core class Novocaine and Freezer. Now for my final thoughts on the Transformers 2 series, Rise of the Beast Deluxe class Nightbird. Nightbird is the final member of the Terracons from the Transformers Rise of the Beast film, and I have to say Nightbird, Battletrap, and Scourge look awesome displayed alongside each other. Starting in Nightbird's room, I love the menacing and evil presence the figure has with the dark black and purple deco. As for accessories, Nightbird comes with one glossy black sword that can be held in the figure's head or stored on the side of the figure's leg. But I do have two major problems with the sword. In the Rise of the Beast film, Nightbird had two swords, and they were yellow and not black. So the sword that was included with this figure isn't accurate. I also do have a problem with the back of the figure. The entire backpack is quite large and doesn't want to stay compact or together very well. And the wings or the thrusters that are attached to the back of the figure are inaccurate and tiny in proportion to the rest of the figure. As for articulation, the figure is surprisingly posable considering how big the backpack is. I also do think the feet of the figure should be slightly bigger because the figure can be very unstable at times. As for transmission, it's pretty straightforward and fun. The only complaint or annoying thing is that the pieces of the backpack can fall off. As for Nightbird's sports car alt mode, one awesome detail about this mode is that it is a licensed Nissan car. I love all the gold trim on the outer edge mixed with the dark gray for the entire base color of the car, and the huge racing fin at the back looks great. And if you're wondering about accessory storage, the sword can be stored underneath the car on either side. What do you think of this figure? Let me know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you next time.